Hi, I'm Professor Silver, and today I'll break down the history of Ash's Scraggy, detailing how Ash raised him from a battle-hungry infant into a respectable warrior deserving of praise and admiration. Like with Phanpy, Ash initially got Scraggy as an egg. He got the egg in the black and white episode Here Comes the Trubbish Squad, as thanks for helping school children fend off a Sandile he would later capture. Scraggy incubated for 5 episodes before finally hatching in the episode Scraggy Hatched to be Wild. Only seconds after hatching, the dark fighting type revealed himself to be an aggressive brute who loved to battle. Similar to Riolu in Pokemon Journeys, one of the first things that Scraggy did after hatching was seek out an opponent. Ash was impressed by Scraggy's gumption, so he honored his desire for battle by letting him fight Pikachu. While Scraggy leered at Pikachu and landed Headbutt, Pikachu repelled his advances and nearly incapacitated him with a low-level Thunderbolt. Despite standing no chance, Scraggy still wanted to battle. When he was then introduced to Ash's other Pokemon, he responded to each of their hellos with a mighty Headbutt. Pidove responded with surprise, Oshawott with anger, Tepig with indifference, and Snivy with flair. Unlike her teammates, Snivy kept Scraggy at Vine's distance and prevented him from landing a single blow. Because Scraggy beat none of Ash's Pokemon, he took out all his aggression on Ash. By dinner time, Scraggy's lack of victory had left him sad and dejected. He was so indignant that he even stopped Ash from catching him and wandered off to find new opponents. Whilst traversing the forest, he bit off more than he could chew by challenging a wild Galvantula. Galvantula paralyzed him with Electro Ball, Electro Web, and Pin Missile. That he was able to survive only hours after being born was impressive in itself. Luckily, Pikachu rescued Scraggy before the spider Pokemon could hurt him further. All of Scraggy's injuries were healed by the next morning thanks to some medicine he got from Ash and Iris. Since the shedding Pokemon was an ornery little fellow, he sought out revenge immediately upon waking up. Had Axew not noticed his disappearance and alerted Ash, Scraggy might have been spider food. Fortunately, Ash enlisted the aid of all his Pokemon and rescued Scraggy from an all-too-early demise. Seeing the awesome power of Ash's other Pokemon helped Scraggy realize that the trainer could supercharge his abilities. That said, the Pokemon was still quite the brat. When Axew tried to befriend him at breakfast, for example, he shunned the dragon and challenged him to battle. Since both combatants were low-level newborns, the two of them became sparring partners at Silent's suggestion. Ultimately, the battle between Axew and Scraggy kicked off their friendship. As the Black and White series progressed, they would go on to see each other as both best friends and brothers. During the match, Scraggy leered at Axew, landed Headbutt, withstood Scratch, used a second Headbutt, and produced a double knockout by intercepting Dragon Rush, with yet another Headbutt. After finally achieving something more than a loss, Scraggy joined Ash's team with the hopes of getting ever stronger. Following his capture, Scraggy made many appearances throughout Ash's adventures in Unova. Ash had many Pokemon that saga, so Scraggy regularly rotated between the trainer's team and Juniper's lab. Scraggy left a memorable presence on Ash's adventures, primarily because he never stopped being a rambunctious scamp with the attitude of a grumpy old man. In his first reappearance, for instance, during the episode A Connoisseur's Revenge, he headbutt Silen's rival Burgundy. In all fairness, though, he only did so because she said that he had the aroma of an old shoe. Many of Scraggy's early appearances involved his rivalry with Iris's Axew. Together, the two of them went from unskilled battlers who could barely land an attack into two of Unova's strongest Pokemon. During their training session in the episode Dancing with the Ducklet Trio, all they could basically do to each other was trade Headbutt for Scratch. Axew tried to use Dragon Rage as well, but his failure ended the battle early. Scraggy got the upper hand during their next battle in the episode Dragon Master's Path, but like before, the battle ended without a winner as Axew once again blew himself up with Dragon Rage. As a result of their battles together, both Scraggy and Axew began to grow in strength. While their power was mostly on par, Axew's mastery of Dragon Rage led him to get the upper hand in the episode Cottony in Love. Regardless of the fact that they had a brief minor imbalance in power, Scraggy's training with a male Cottony in that same episode likely closed the divide by episode's end. As bros do, Scraggy trained the wild Pokemon so as to help and impress a girl. In doing so, he not only gained a new friend, but proved that his grumpy demeanor belied a heart of gold. Although good at heart, Scraggy still had much to learn and often acted immaturely. As examples of his youth shining through in full force, all one needs to do is look at his brawling with his teammates in Emolga and the new Volt Switch. Additionally, one can look at his getting everyone sick in the episode Facing Fear with Eyes Wide Open. Scraggy's headbutting of Wild Fungus nearly spelled the doom of his teammates. If Ash and Oshawott hadn't found Romeo Weed to heal them, then the gang's Pokemon might have perished. All that being said, in spite of Scraggy's oftentimes brash behavior and headstrong personality, he stood by his allies when push came to shove. During the black and white Victini films, for instance, Scraggy bravely squared off against Carlita's Hydreigon, not only to prove his strength, but also to help Ash get a win. While Scraggy only won the battle thanks to Victini powering up his Headbutt, his bravery in the match was still commendable. Furthermore, in Meowth's crafty tactics, Scraggy put aside his ill will towards Meowth in order to help rescue Axew from a wild Scrafty that had kidnapped him. During the rescue effort, Scraggy befriended the misunderstood Scrafty and learned from it how to use the new move High Jump Kick. After learning that a wild Mandibuzz had stolen Scrafty's nest, Scraggy battled the Pokemon in defense of his friend. He dodged Pluck and won with High Jump Kick, showing that he was a threat to more Pokemon than just Axew. Thanks to his mastery over High Jump Kick, Scraggy tied with Axew in the episode Scraggy and the Demanding Gothita. While relaxing together after the battle, the two of them revealed that their rivalry had finally led them to embrace each other as best friends. They became so friendly towards one another that the idea of losing Scraggy to trainer Catherine's Gothita gave Axew both anxiety and nightmares. Gothita had a crush on Scraggy, so she demanded that her trainer trade for him. Catherine offered to Ash her Mandibuzz, Deerling, and Darumakka, but Ash refused all her requests. He deeply loved Scraggy and didn't want to give him away, but he still accepted Catherine's request to battle with the promise that the winner would keep him. Ash accepted the challenge because he had total faith that his Tepig could beat her Mandibuzz. His self-confidence was totally validated when Tepig won, meaning Scraggy wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Gothita tried to lure Scraggy away despite the battle's outcome, but Axew and Snivy refused to let her plan succeed and thwarted her efforts. Following that whole ordeal, Scraggy trained with some Dino in the Lonely Dino and finally stepped into the spotlight as a true bruiser. Starting in the episode The Clubsplosion begins, he partook in the Clubsplosion, starring in several major battles. The competition represented a major shift in his character arc. From the tournament onward, he was no longer a baby, but rather a fully fledged fighter, ready to take on gym leaders and league-level threats. During the Clubsplosion's first round, Scraggy battled against competitor Angus's Simisage. He started off silly by leering at Angus, but turned things around for the better after dodging Seed Bomb and blocking Low Sweep. The maneuver perfectly showed how his thick skin provided him with a turtle shell-like defense. Although Simisage then fought back with Shadow Claw, Seed Bomb, Low Sweep, and Giga Impact, Scraggy regained the upper hand with High Jump Kick. He almost lost his lead after missing a second High Jump Kick and getting throttled by Low Sweep, but he won in the end by learning Focus Blast. Thanks to his learning of the move, Scraggy had little issue repelling Giga Impact. Ash intended for another Focus Blast to seize the win, but the move's miss led Scraggy to win out instead with Leer and Headbutt. As the tournament continued into the episode Searching for the Club Ultimate, Scraggy found himself besieged by the adoration of Ash's rival Bianca. Once she was out of the way though, he set out to master Focus Blast. Even though Scraggy could flawlessly generate the blast, he couldn't control the move's trajectory. He trained around the clock, but failed to master the attack before his fight against Betty's Simipour. At the battle's start in the episode A Clubsplosion of Excitement, Scraggy kicked Aquatail, repelled Brick Break, and embarrassed himself by missing Focus Blast. Regardless of the fact that he was down a move, he was still the stronger of the two fighters. After tanking Acrobatics, he led off Leer, muscled through Brick Break with Headbutt, and won with High Jump Kick. By winning the battle, Scraggy advanced Ash to the tournament's semifinals. While there, in the episode Commanding the Clubsplosion, Scraggy and Ash battled the competition's previous year's winner, Montgomery. Unfortunately, Montgomery used his super powerful throw to end their winning streak. To win the battle, Throw withstood Leer, scared Scraggy, stood still to avoid Focus Blast, intercepted High Jump Kick, shrugged off Headbutt, and used Seismic Toss. All in all, the battle ended in a loss, but set up Scraggy to be treated like any other Pokemon on Ash's team. Even though Scraggy had officially caught up to his teammates in terms of power, he still loved to play with Axew. Following the tournament, the two of them played together in the episode battling the Leaf Thieves. Their playtime with Ash's recently evolved Leavanny led to Axew getting kidnapped by Durant. The silver lining of the harrowing ordeal was that it provided Scraggy the perfect chance to prove his love for his best friend. Alongside Ash, Scraggy led the rescue effort for Axew. He wrapped himself in leaves so that Durant would take him to Axew's location, and fought off the Iron Ant Pokemon with High Jump Kick. After Axew was rescued, Scraggy battled in his first and only gym battle of the series. At the Icarus Gym, in the episode Caution Icy Battle Conditions, he battled gym leader Bryson's Vanillish and Cryogonal. Of course, Axew cheered for him all throughout the battle. Opposite Vanillish, Scraggy missed several attacks, shielded himself from Icicle Spear, withstood Blizzard, connected with Focus Blast, and won with Headbutt. While the win proved that he was as strong as a gym-level fighter, it partially occurred out of random luck. Had Focus Blast gone astray, Vanillish might have gained the upper hand, like Cryogonal would go on to get. Because Scraggy hadn't yet mastered Focus Blast, Cryogonal countered Headbutt, landed Rapid Spin, evaded Focus Blast, and won with Aurora Beam. Regardless of the battle's outcome, Scraggy didn't let the loss get him down. He still played with his friends in Kyurem vs. the Sword of Justice, and continued his training by battling Chris's Larvitar in the Mystery of the Missing Cubchoo. Against Larvitar, he landed Headbutt, withstood Bite, missed High Jump Kick, tanked Sandstorm, and tied the battle with Focus Blast. Although the battle represented the first time since learning Focus Blast that he was able to control the move's trajectory, it also stood as one of the most mind-boggling ties I've ever seen in the series. That Scraggy would tie to a newly caught Pokemon owned by a green little kid is absolutely ridiculous. Given how much training he had done by that point in the series, he should have won the battle with ease. The saving grace of the whole thing was that Scraggy never again suffered such an embarrassment. Instead of tying with a weakling, in his next major appearance, he unveiled full mastery over Focus Blast. During the episode Unrest at the Nursery, he used the move to blow up a boulder, showing he had grown in strength and attained perfect accuracy. Later on, at the Unova League, in the episode Lost at the League, Scraggy further showcased his strength by trouncing a Darumakka. Unfortunately, it was Scraggy's only battle of the league. As an aside, it's always bummed me out that Scraggy got such a weak opponent at the league. Had he fought something more notable like a Bisharp or a Druddigon, his accomplishment would have been way more impressive. The only other thing Scraggy did of note at the league was find Axew when the Pokemon got lost. Perhaps even worse than missing out on a major league battle, Scraggy barely got any appearances throughout the Decolore Island saga. He didn't appear much because Ash slowed down on the rotation of his team and added Charizard into the mix. Regardless, in the few episodes that he did appear, he left a notable presence. In the episode The Path That Leads to Goodbye, he spent most of the storyline pining for his best friend Axew after Ash and Iris had a falling out. It delighted him when he was reunited with his best buddy, but they only got one appearance together before they were indefinitely separated by time, space, and anime writers. After Scraggy's brief comeback to hang with Axew in Emolga and the Shocking Recruit, he went with Ash to Pallet Town and made his new home at Oak's Lab. In the episode The Dream Continues, he made his last hurrah of the saga. He combined his power with the rest of Ash's Unova team, blasted off Team Rocket, and bid farewell to Ash. Rather than travel with Ash to Kalos, Scraggy became one of Ash's many reserves. He didn't appear in XY or Sun and Moon, but made several comebacks in Pokemon Journeys. Scraggy's first reappearance took place in the episode Friends, Rivals, Lend Me Your Spirit. During the episode, he slept atop Ash's Torterra and watched as Ash battled Paul. In that same saga, at the Masters 8, Scraggy cheered for Ash as he battled champions, encouraged Pikachu during his Spirit Vision, and celebrated Ash's victory over Leon. Scraggy wasn't shown to be on Ash's team during the To Be a Pokemon Master arc, but he briefly appeared at Oak's Lab so as to help Ash find a Charmander in the episode The Rainbow and the Pokemon Master. In spite of Scraggy's missing out on Ash's final adventures, it's safe to assume that he's a rotating reserve, much like the rest of Ash's other Oaked Pokemon. And as that concludes his history to date, let's get to his battle record. Scraggy beat Wild Mandibuzz, Angus's Simisage, Betty's Simipour, Wild Durant, Bryson's Vanillish, and Darumakka. Because Scraggy only defeated Carlita's Hydreigon using Victini's power, I didn't count it as an official win. He lost to Iris's Axew, Montgomery's Throh, and Bryson's Cryogonal. Scraggy tied with Iris's Axew and Chris's Larvitar. Move-wise, Scraggy used Focus Blast, Headbutt, High Jump Kick, and Leer. I'll admit, Scraggy is one of the most ridiculous looking Pokemon I've ever seen. That said, I still think he's an immensely fun character full of personality. My biggest gripes with him as a character are that he never evolved or beat a truly powerful Pokemon. Personally, I wish he joined Iris's team at the end of his run in Black and White. Had Scraggy switched teams, he would have not only been closer to Axew, but also been given the chance to fight under Iris in the Masters 8. A stint on a champion level team while fully evolved would have made Scraggy go from one of Ash's least notable Pokemon into one of his strongest. Even if Scraggy didn't join Iris's team, I would have loved to see him return in Journeys as Haxorus's sparring partner. Upon realizing that Haxorus needed a stronger fighting partner in order to get himself ready to fight champions, it would have been super cool to see Scraggy instantly make himself evolve. Alternatively, I would have loved to see Scraggy train Ash's Riolu, a Pokemon whose early storyline largely rivaled that of his own. Alas, while these storylines never came to pass, we can still enjoy the time we had with Scraggy, the lovable goofball. His existence proves that a character I would normally dislike based on appearance alone can be given new life by the anime. On that, class is adjourned. I'm Professor Silver. Until next time, catch you later.